So now the question is, what is the business case for Teamcenter on the cloud? You already know, if you already work in global organizations, you already know takes time consuming to procure a hardware, go through the whole business case of procuring the hardware, infrastructure, network, operating system to middle tier. It takes a long time. So hence, Teamcenter on the cloud will be an answer for that. Let's look at some strategies here. IDC done a lot of research and came up with why cloud infrastructure will help. It is 4x more reliable, and it is 1/4 the cost of on-premise infrastructure. Siemens also done a lot of research on this, and here is the problem statement. The customers are being driven to reduce their IT cost. Every CIO's mind, if you ask any CIO, what's their number one topic? How do I reduce my IT spending by 10% or 15% year after year? So the Siemens answer is, for this specific topic, Amazon AWS. The business benefits are that zero capital, and as we talked about, that there is up to 4x reliability, 1/4 the cost of on-premise infrastructure. Let's look at one real-life example here. Here is an example of a standard automotive tier 1 supplier. This automotive supplier has 20 servers that include web server, business logic server, and FSC cache servers. They have 5 database servers and 10 terabytes of data, that's storage, and 1,000 users. And if you look at the numbers on the left-hand side here, you're focusing on servers, storage, network, environment, administration. And if you add all these real numbers, data, and the cost comes around $521,000 per year. And we compare against real numbers against the Amazon AWS, the cost comes out to be $76,500. That leads to a whopping savings of over $444,000 per year. And if you project it for the 3 years, it is over $1.3 million. Granted, some of these numbers will change from customer to customer, but in essence, the key idea here is that if you compare your on-premise infrastructure stack against your on the Amazon cloud, there is a huge savings. What Siemens is doing? Siemens is taking the following steps. One, Siemens gone through this, made huge investments in time and money, and put Teamcenter on the cloud by offering infrastructure savings back to the customers. Now, what about the licensing? Licensing is another huge cost. Siemens has provided a different option, a subscription to pay on a monthly basis or an annual basis. You may wonder if you are a small or mid-sized customer, you may wonder, what does that mean to me? Here is an example of a small customer. They have 2 servers, WebLogic, Web, BLS, and FSC cache servers, 1 database server, 5 bytes of data, and 20 to 30 users. If we compare again apple to apple here against on-premise versus AWS, you would see the whopping $87,000 savings per year. If you project over 3 years, it's $261,000 savings. Hence, it's very clear, crisp clear, Teamcenter on the cloud brings cost savings to the customer. Now, what is Teamcenter on the cloud? What does it mean? How does it work? Let's look at some of the slides here. Teamcenter on the cloud. So Siemens came up with a vision of Teamcenter on the cloud. The vision is speed PLM time to value by simplifying deployment, providing flexibility to quickly scale deployment and reducing cost of ownership. What does that mean? The key is that instead of taking months to deploy, it's by using the cloud infrastructure, you can quickly deploy and easy to deploy on Teamcenter on cloud platform like AWS. Flexibility, scale, you can scale your deployment up and down. You can add more servers, reduce your servers based on your business needs. And as we looked at it, the cost will significantly lower total cost of ownership. Teamcenter on the cloud, speed, time to value. There are three things. One, simplified deployment, I talked about earlier. Instant scalability, lower cost of ownership. We'll go in a little bit more detail what this means. Let's look at simplified deployment. Simplified deployment, you can quickly and easily deploy Teamcenter on the cloud. How? Siemens has invested a lot of time and money in developing cloud formation scripts that you can follow a step-by-step process to deploy a Teamcenter on the cloud on Amazon, AWS. Here is, if you see here is, you can select the server size, disk type, network type, spatial options of the hardware stack. Then you can deploy Teamcenter. Here is a 4-tier client on your premise, and then you have the front end through which you get into the environment, and you have all-in-one Teamcenter, which is well configured using this cloud formation scripts. Siemens has currently certified on Amazon Cloud and working with IBM and Microsoft on certification pretty soon. It's working on IBM Cloud and Microsoft Azure platforms. And Siemens also has a cloud deployment service providers on Teamcenter like PROLIM, and there are other partners also available to help you to deploy Teamcenter on the cloud. Instant scalability. You can dynamically size and scale your deployment as project needs. For example, let me share with some of my experiences. When we're deploying a Teamcenter on the cloud in 13 countries and in a large OEM and the 500 suppliers, we have to build lots of environments. We have to build development 1 environment, development 2 environment, the unit testing QA environment, integration test environment, user acceptance testing environment, performance scalability environment, user verification environment, pre-prod environment, and then deployment environment. Imagine how many environments. Some environments live for a very short while, 2 months, 3 months in the deployment cycle. You can't afford to procure that complex hardware and build it and keep it ready. So very cost prohibitive. And what to do with that hardware once the program is over. The Teamcenter on the cloud, you can log into, open an account with Amazon. You can create different environments. You can scale your environment from small hardware to small server to larger hardware. Scale it up. Your UAT testing is done. You can log into the Amazon control panel and turn it off. Your billing starts right there. You can package the entire environment and store it, or you can destroy it. So that is the beauty of this Teamcenter on the cloud. You can leverage your infrastructure, dynamically size and scale your deployment. We'll walk through in the part of the AVI how you can scale this environment. And you can instantly deploy additional instances and data caches or cache over FSC cache across the globe. That way you can have a speed of execution, speed of access of data. So the third item we talked about, lower cost of ownership. You can reduce the total cost of ownership by going infrastructure as a service. As we talked about earlier, can you please put a mute, please? There are two, as we talked earlier, the service models of cloud infrastructure, traditional IT where one from...
Has been repaired. There's one,
can you please mute your phone?
That is popping up. It happens to be kind of where the...
Excuse me, can you put on mute?
So it's probably, no question, probably, a little bit weight on it, but with the
Okay, all right, thanks. Thank you very much. All right, sorry for the inconvenience. Let's continue. Reduce the total cost of ownership infrastructure as a service. As we talked earlier, the infrastructure as a service in a traditional IT, within your premise, you own from hardware to operating systems to middleware to application and data. As an infrastructure as a service, you pretty much outsourced the entire hardware, the entire CapEx, out to a cloud provider, cloud infrastructure provider. And you are managing operating system and above, and hence it will reduce your IT burden and maintenance cost of the hardware. You may wonder, what is Teamcenter deployment and support means in a cloud infrastructure? So look at on the left-hand side, in a traditional IT infrastructure, a four-tier Teamcenter deployment. All the four layers: database layer 1, your layer number 2, business logic, 3, the web server, and your 4, the four-tier clients. All are within on your premise. Customer might have outsourced to their IT partner or managing a combination of IT or their service provider. What does that mean after the cloud? All the 3 layers, from database to business logic to your web tier, they're all within your cloud service provider. In this case, for example, Amazon Cloud. And you are managing only the fourth tier, which is the clients. Your clients are connecting through what we call as the front door of Amazon Cloud through the proxy to your Teamcenter environment. It's highly secured. It's very hard to break it. What is Amazon Cloud global infrastructure and their footprint? If you see that Amazon is pretty much there in every geographic location. There are AWS regions and there are also AWS edge locations. You can connect, you can deploy in every part of the world. Now, the question is, why does Siemens care? How do we leverage on-premise versus off-premise? The Siemens care does not, because the customers care. Everybody wants speed of execution, reduce cost. And here are the key benefits. If you look at this, number 1, pay for the infrastructure as you need. Earlier I was talking about if you want to build an UAT environment, you have to start with hardware, looking at the hardware, getting the code. So should I go for Sunblade V8 AT or different server or a Windows server? You start with all that, getting 3 codes and selecting the vendor, getting the hardware into your infrastructure and provisioning. It will take months. Here, you pay as the infrastructure. You don't need to put all that CapEx upfront. And you can reduce your lower cost of IT since its cloud infrastructure is evolving. And since then, there's a 31 times price reductions. Huge. Today, it's very, very cheap and affordable.